Chapter 395. Even Xieding couldn't help but frown. "Don't worry, little brother," Xie Jingxing retorted sarcastically. "Older brother, I will wait for you all to enter officialdom and establish your career in the court and have unlimited glory. At that time, we will still have to rely on you to protect the Xie family. The Marquis will be very happy." Now Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao had just entered officialdom, and if one were to talk about walking to that step, based on their abilities, it would take a long time. Xie Jingxing was mocking them for not having good aptitude and could only rely on the Xie family's relationship to climb up. "You!" Xie Chongqiao was furious and was about to speak when he heard Xieding shouting, "Enough!" Xie Chongqiao and Xie Chongwu immediately did not make a sound, but it was Xie Jingxing who revealed some impatience. "Have the Marquis finished speaking? If finished, then quickly leave. I want to sleep." "Jingxing," Xieding suddenly said tiredly, "after so many years, do you still hate me so much?" He hated her so much that he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his own life to leave the Marquis's mansion. Xieding was now in his 40s, but could still be considered as a middle-aged man with a beautiful beard. Even though he was a military general, he was different from Shan Xian's coarse and forthright manner and had the elegance of a gentleman. When Xieding was young, he was already known as the Confucian general, and he could be considered handsome. Most of the Xie family had inherited Xieding's looks, and even Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao were considered handsome, but compared to Xie Jingxing, there was a huge difference. Princess Yuqing was gentle and elegant, and Xieding was also a gentleman like Jade when he was young. But he gave birth to a Xie Jingxing who had a flourishing appearance, and what was more flourishing was his character. He was frivolous, arrogant, and dissolute. There was simply no one in the world who could do anything to him. He didn't seem to care about anything, and was so arrogant that he didn't put anyone in his eyes. With this kind of appearance and temperament, if he were to be placed in the history books, he would probably be considered a legendary romantic figure. But there was nothing anyone could do about it. For example, Xieding. Xieding's hair had already turned white. He said, "Jingxing, do you still hate me?" When he said this, Xieding's voice trembled. He usually hated Xie Jingxing, but at this moment, he was like a father helplessly surrendering to his son. Hate? Hate what? Did he hate the fact that he had allowed Madame Fong to marry into the family back then, so that a woman with evil intentions could take advantage of him? Let Princess Yuqing die with hatred and let Xie Jingxing live in such a deformed house? He was clearly in the wrong first, but he was infatuated with her and refused to marry again. There was such an infatuated person who refused to execute Madame Fong, doting on Xie Jingxing in every possible way, trying to use this to atone for her sins. The mistake had been made, but the person was not around. How could the sin be redeemed? Xie Jingxing glanced at him, and his gaze sharpened for a moment. However, even if this once all-powerful general showed such fatigue, he was not moved. He had never hated Xieding, he just disdained him. Furthermore, Xie Jingxing said, "Marquis is thinking too much. How would I have that leisure time? I don't have the time to hate you." These words were too hurtful. When Xieding heard this, he unconsciously took 2 steps back, clutching his chest. His face was sorrowful and difficult to understand. It was Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao who were more and more delighted in their hearts. The deeper Xie Jingxing was injured, the more disappointed Xieding would be with Xie Jingxing. Only in this way, there would be a day when the 2 brothers could completely replace Xie Jingxing's position. Like this, Xieding said with difficulty, "Then you go to battle." His voice became lower. "I will explain to the Xie family's army that those people will assist you. You can take the armor in the residence and the heart-protecting mirror." Xieding seemed to have aged 10 years in one night as he looked at Xie Jingxing. Promise more." Xie Chongqiao and Xie Chongwu supported Xieding out. Before leaving, Xie Chongqiao smiled maliciously at Xie Jingxing. This younger brother will congratulate eldest brother for defeating the enemy and returning triumphantly. But he looked as if he could not wait for Xie Jingxing to die on the battlefield. After Xie Chongwu and Xie Jingxing left, the doors of the room were closed, and under the flickering lights, one did not know when a black-clad person appeared. The black-clad person said, "Master, Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao, forget it?" Xie Jingxing said, "Now that they are dead, the Marquis of Lin and will not let me leave." The Xie family's army only listened to the Marquis of Lin and will not listen to Master's orders. The black-clad person said, "What does Master plan to do? Just a mere Xie family's army. Who would care about them?" Xie Jingxing was somewhat impatient. "How is the princess residence's arrangements?" Replying to Master, "The people placed are all in the dark to protect Her Highness Princess Rongxian. Is Master not going to bid farewell to Princess Rongxian? No need." Xie Jingxing waved his hands. "This will do." The black-clad person respectfully acknowledged before turning and retreating. In the dim lights, that handsome face with red lips and white teeth had lost its previous unruly and romantic look and showed some gentleness. Taking off the purple gold robe and only wearing a jade white inner robe, the youth's eyelashes were long and seemed to be looking at the fire, as handsome as a person in a painting. "Hate?" He lowered his eyes and smiled faintly. "Everyone in the world will hate me." Chapter 396. There was never a lack of new things in the Ding capital. As long as there was any movement the day before, the news would spread like wildfire the next day. If he were to implicate some famous person, he would naturally be talked about for 3 days and 3 nights. Some of them were discussing these things as a joke, but there were also some who truly felt that it was not worth it for the people they were discussing. In today's liveliness, the person they were talking about was the unparalleled formidable great general of Ming Qi, quelling the Woka pirates, fighting the Xiongnu, fighting in the northwest all year round, not claiming credit, not being arrogant, with outstanding military achievements, protecting the country. He was talking about the Shen family of generals. Ever since old General Shen, the Shen family had relied on their illustrious meritorious service to win prestige among the common people of Ming Qi. It was a pity that out of the 3 sons of old General Shen, only the eldest Shen Xian inherited his mantle and continued to walk the path of a military official. Fortunately, a tiger father would not beget a dog son. Shen Xian did not disappoint the name of the formidable great general, and even Shan Xian's son, Shen Xiu, was a brave young general on the battlefield. Brothers fighting a tiger, father and son soldiers going into battle. Shen Xian did not put on airs in the army and charged at the forefront in battle. His union with Luo Shuiyan, the tiger daughter of a family of generals, was hailed as a legend of a generation. The common people of Ming Qi respected Shen Xian from the bottom of their hearts, and if there was anything bad, it would be that Shen Xian's daughter did not inherit any of her parents' excellence and was instead an idiot. But even if the daughter was an idiot, when Shan Xian was mentioned, the commoners would always support and chase after him. But now, with the accusation of deceiving the emperor, the people were all dumbfounded. It wasn't a small matter, nor was it a matter of one's house. The first thing he did was to deceive the emperor and defy his superiors. That was a serious crime that could result in the confiscation of one's house. Early in the morning, the officials of the court surrounded the entrance of the Shun residence, saying that they wanted to collect evidence. The commoners only knew that Shen Xian had committed the crime of deceiving the emperor, but they did not know what the crime was and how he had deceived the emperor. How would General Shen deceive the emperor? He's such a good person. Yes, the last time my child was naughty and startled Shun Foran's horse. Not only did Shun Foran not blame us, she even apologized to us. Could it be that your majesty is mistaken about such a good person? Hey, what mistake? I heard that this time, it's already a done deal. There's even evidence. Someone whispered, even though one do not know what it is. One heard that His Highness Prince Ding personally reported it to General Shan. Your Highness Prince Ding? That's right. Think about it. His Highness Prince Ding would definitely not fake it. Perhaps it was because 5th Shin young lady was in love with His Highness Prince Ding and was humiliated. In order to vent his daughter's anger, General Shun did something that let His Majesty down. Ah, it is possible to say so. Poor General Shun's family, they were really harmed by that daughter. The voices of these commoners were not low, and Shun Miao stood at the residence's entrance and could clearly hear it. The people in the mansion all stood at the entrance of the mansion, so that the soldiers could enter and search. Shin Yu pretended to be afraid as she hid behind Shin Roqiu and looked at Shin Miao sympathetically. 5th younger sister, how can these people say that about you? What does uncle's actions have to do with you? Shin Miao looked coldly at those fiendish-looking soldiers and smiled when she heard that. Once he was blinded, he would be branded as an idiot who adored Prince Ding for the rest of his life. It was really disgusting. Seeing that Shin Miao did not speak, Shin Yu thought that she had nothing to say, and there was a proud look in her eyes, but she stood there without saying a word. After old Shen Foreign was sure that Shin Exine would not implicate her, she was relieved and put on an upright attitude of a matriarch and angrily rebuked, "How can eldest lady do such a treacherous thing? My Shin family has been loyal for generations, and there is no such shameless person." Simply throwing the Shun family's face. If the general was still here, he would not see eldest lady spoil the family's reputation. Chapter 397. When Shin Miao heard it, her heart moved and she looked at old Shin Foreign. What is grandmother saying? Father is also a member of the Shin family, and the Shin family and father are connected as one. How can one not care about father at this time? Previously, when father was praised by the emperor, did grandmother not say that it was the Shun family's fortune to have such a male? Words that are said are like water that is spilled. Did grandmother forget this time? When the commoners who were watching the bustle outside heard it, their gazes shot towards old Shun Foreign. The formidable great general had outstanding military merits, and when he was bestowed by the emperor, old Shun Foreign did not say that. They were one family and should share prosperity and misfortune together. Why was it that old Shun Foreign's appearance was that one could only share riches and not trials and tribulations? Once one saw that others were in trouble, one could not wait to draw a clear line. What was wrong with that? Old Shin Foreign was also aware that everyone was looking at her with unkind eyes and flew into a rage out of shame, but did not know how to continue and could only look towards Chen Roqiu at the side. Shin Gui and Shun Wan had gone to court, and the only one who could take charge was Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu smiled. "Fifth older sister, how would old Foreign have the meaning that you said?" Old Foreign was just angered. "You also know that our Shun family has always been upright people, and that deceiving the monarch. If the old general knew of it, he would also blame your father. For your father to do such a thing, would the Shin family be like this in the future?" When old Shin Foreign saw Chen Roqiu's support, her foundation became firmer, and she saw Chen Roqiu more pleasing to the eye. She nodded her head. "Correct. Your father committed a mistake, and one is not allowed to say it." Shin Dongling and Wan Yinyang stood at the side, and since they did not have the authority to speak, they only quietly watched and did not speak. Shin Miao said, "So to speak, could it be that grandmother wants to draw a clear line with my father and expel him from the Shin family before letting it go?" When she said that, Chen Roqiu knew that it was bad in her heart. Before she could stop it, she saw old Shun Foreign's eyes lighting up, and she said with righteous indignation, "Such an unfilial descendant. Naturally, one must be expelled from the Shun family. If grandmother is really so heartless, my father is still in prison and grandmother does not help to deal with it." Shin Miao's eyes hung down. Seeing Shan Miao bowing her head to show weakness, old Shun Foreign felt a burst of comfort in her heart. A few days ago, everything was not going well for her because of the first branch. The grievance in her heart was swept away at this moment. The more carefree she was, the more righteous her tone became. The Shun family has been loyal for generations, and even if one were to bear the infamy of being heartless, this old one would still make this decision for master. This kind of person cannot enter my Shin family's ancestral hall. From today onwards, Shin Xian and his family will be expelled from the Shin family. Old Shin Foreign was speaking carefreely, but did not see Chen Roqiu's face change in color. Even though it was natural to draw a clear line of relations, but for old Shun Foreign to do it so clearly, it was really too stupid. In the eyes of the commoners were not fools and would not stand on the side of the Shun residents. Thinking of this, Chen Roqiu smiled apologetically to Shin Miao. "Fifth older sister, old Foreign does not mean this. It was only because he was angered by his eldest brother that he said that. Fifth lady, after a few days, when old madam's anger subsides, she won't be like this anymore." Shin Yu somewhat did not understand why her mother would say that. Was it not good to let old Shin Foreign drive Shin Miao out? Now that Shin Xian and the rest were carrying the crime of deceiving the monarch, even if they were to rely on their years of meritorious deeds to avoid death, it would be hard to escape punishment, and they would definitely be in dire straits. To drive out this dire family, perhaps they would not even have a place to stay. Just thinking about it made one happy. Third, Shin need not say any more. Shin Miao said loudly, since old foreign values the Shin family's reputation so much that she does not even place familial affection in her eyes, then what is there for me to fear? It is better to separate from here and be at peace with each other, so as to not spoil the Shin family's reputation. She said it sarcastically. It is just that it would be difficult to move in such a short period of time. When the Lord Army is done searching, I will pack my luggage and move out once father and mother return. I will not tarnish the Shun family by a single bit. Chapter 398. She spoke angrily. At first glance, she seemed like a proud young lady who had been forced to speak indiscriminately. However, if one listened carefully, there was no room for negotiation at all. Shin Xian and wife were people who loved their daughter dearly. If they knew that in the time that they entered the palace, their daughter was forced to the point where she was almost swept out of the Shin family, one feared that there would be a score to be settled. The surrounding commoners were in an uproar. They never expected to see such a good show here. It was just that old Shun Foreign's attitude was really displeasing, and on the contrary, it was the fifth young lady of the Shun family who was called an idiot. She was delicate and pretty but was forced to such a situation. One could not help but feel sympathy and lean towards Shan Miao's side. Chen Rochio was secretly shocked and looked at Shin Miao without speaking as it was too late to say anything now. To quarrel in front of so many commoners, within half a day, the entire Ding capital would know about this matter. Even though it was said that the Shin family and Shan Xian had drawn a clear line of relationship and it was the Shin family who benefited, but Chen Rochio had a faint, uneasy feeling in her heart. Shin Miao had been leading everyone by the nose. No matter if it was to let old Shin Foreign say that Shun Xian was expelled from the Shin family, or now everyone's sympathy was biased towards Shan Miao's side. But why did Shin Miao want to do that? Why did it look like Shan Miao borrowed old Shun Foreign's words to urge Shun Xian to get rid of the Shin family? Chen Rochio could not help but think of the first household separation from the family a few days ago. Naturally, old Shun Foreign was not willing to let the first household leave with the treasures, but Shun Xian and wife's decision could not be changed. At that time, they agreed to look at other residences, but who knew that such a thing would happen? He thought that the separation of the family would be left unsettled. He didn't expect that it would be brought up again. Moreover, under the watchful eyes of so many people, it would be impossible for him to go back on his words in the future. Old Shin Foreign was dissatisfied with Chen Rochio helping to intercede for Shin Miao, but after seeing that Shin Miao did not know what was good for her, she said that there was not a trace of relationship with the Shin family before she was satisfied. With a cold snort, he ignored the disdainful gazes of the commoners outside and went in with his servant girl. Chen Rochio hesitated for a moment before holding Shan Yu's hand and followed in. Wan Yinyang also wanted to follow in, but saw Shun Dongling release her hand and walked straight to her side. Fifth sister. Shin Dongling called out to her. This seemed to be the first time Shin Dongling called her after leaving the courtyard. Shin Miao's eyes hung down and lightly answered, "Third older sister." "Fifth sister, don't worry." Shun Dongling looked soft and weak, but her smile was warm. "First uncle will definitely be fine. Eldest uncle is not a person who will deceive the monarch. The truth will eventually come to light." Shin Miao's expression did not change and said, "Many thanks to third older sister." Shin Dongling then smiled and turned to the stunned Wan Yinyang's side and pulled her towards the door. "Young lady," Jingzhi came over and asked, "What is third young lady's meaning?" Just now, with Shan Miao's arrogance and willful ruckus, it almost indicated that her relationship with the rest of the people in the Shen residence was broken. This Shin Dongling came to express goodwill. Was she not afraid that old Shin Foreign would blame her? Shin Miao did not speak and looked at the back view of Shan Dongling and Wan Yinyang leaving and shook her head thoughtfully. Inside the door, seeing that there was no one around, Wan Yinyang whispered, "Linger, what happened to you just now? How dare you express goodwill to fifth young lady? If old Foreign saw it, return and tell your father." Shin Gui was also not pleasing to the eyes of the first household, so it would be strange if Shen Gui would be happy when Shan Dongling rushed to please the first household. "Do not worry, Yinyang." Shun Dongling smiled. They will not be able to fight against fifth younger sister. What? Wan Yinyang was startled. Xin Dongling pursed her lips and pulled Wan Yinyang forward. Do not ask anymore. Let's go back. Such a big matter happened to the Xin family that even the commoners were alarmed. So naturally, the previous court's anger was quite heavy. Chapter 399. In the throne room, Emperor Wenhui sat on the dragon throne, and his face was so gloomy that water could drip out. Looking at the crowd of officials in the hall, he threw the booklet in his hands at the nearest official's face. That official's face was hit by the booklet, but he did not dare to say a word and immediately knelt down. Shin Xian and wife had not left the palace since Shanxiu entered. Thus the outside did not know what happened, but the officials were well aware that Shin Xian and wife were obviously detained by Emperor Wenhui. Why would one detain an official? This was something that one did not even need to think about. This official had a problem, and the emperor wanted to deal with him. This kind of simple logic was something that all the officials understood. Generally speaking, it was better to keep silent. But today Emperor Wenhui's expression was somewhat strange. Count of Pingnan, you speak. Emperor Wenhui called out. The Count of Pingnan, Suyu's body quivered, and the other officials started to look at him. Suyu thought of the words that Su Mingfeng said to him last night and no longer hesitated. He took out a booklet from his sleeves and respectfully handed it to the eunuch beside the emperor, who then handed it to Emperor Wenhui. Replying to your majesty, this official also think that the formidable great general's action is presumptuous and did not put the imperial family in his eyes. Pleading your majesty to punish Shin Xian and execute his 9 generations. Execute his 9 generations? It was still all right for those officials who had good relations with Suyu, but when those officials who did not have any political relations with Suyu heard it, their eyes were filled with surprise. All along, the Count of Pingnan had always been gentle in the court and could be considered as a good person, who knew that the moment he opened his mouth, he would want Shin Xian's life. These words were too heavy. Emperor Wenhui's hand trembled as he took the booklet and his eyes stared at Suyu. Suyu raised his head and had an impassioned look. Reporting to your majesty, the Marquis of Lineage, Xieding, who had been silent all along, also said, Shin Xian has his own troops and even dared to defy your majesty's orders. One fear that he already had the intention to rebel. This official also agrees with Su Daren's words to execute the 9 generations of the Shin family. Everyone's eyes looked towards Xieding and Suyu. Everyone knew that the Su and Xie families had a close relationship, and the Shin family and these 2 families had a clear distinction. Now that something had happened to Shin Xian, the Su and Xie families were like grasshoppers on a rope. They would definitely jump up and step on them a few times before they would be satisfied. Emperor Wenhui's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. Originally, he was extremely satisfied with the evidence that Fu Xiui sent over. He had been eyeing the Shin family, this fat piece of meat, covetously, but he had not been able to find an opportunity. With Fu Xiuyi's evidence, no matter what, it was a very simple matter to take back the Shin family's military power. Who knew that early in the morning, when this matter was mentioned in court, the ministers all expressed that Shin Xian would be severely punished. Shin Xian had been fighting in the northwestern region all year round and did not have a deep relationship with these officials in court. Emperor Wenhui had long expected that there were many people who thought that Shin Xian was wrong, but he did not expect that it would be to this extent. But there were very few who pleaded for Shin Xian. The emperor's heart was full of suspicions, and if there were many officials that interceded for Shin Xian, Emperor Wenhui would most likely suspect that Shin Xian was privately close to the officials. But if there were more people who impeached Shin Xian, Emperor Wenhui would be more at ease with Shin Xian. An official who had a rebellious heart would not set up so many enemies for himself. If one were to say that these officials impeaching Shin Xian made Emperor Wenhui hesitate, then the Count of Pingnan and the Marquis of Lineage's 9-clan execution made Emperor Wenhui suspicious. The Shin family, Su family, and Xie family were all thorns in Emperor Wenhui's heart. Not to say how these officials were, but just based on the prestige and military power that these large clans had, it would make Emperor Wenhui's sleep uneasy. How could the side couch allow others to sleep soundly? Emperor Wenhui did not allow the existence of a family that was above the imperial power. Chapter 400. In the Su and Xie family were ropes that were twisted together. It was fortunate that the Shen family and these two families were like fire and water. Otherwise, they would really become a big trouble for Emperor Wen Hui. If it was really as what the Su and Xie families said, and the Shen family's 9 clans were exterminated, then within the Ming Cheese lands, there would no longer be any power that could contend against the Su and Xie families. If he allowed the Su and Xie families to grow stronger, his throne would become even more unstable. For the first time, Emperor Wen Hui felt that it was difficult to dismount the tiger. He only wanted to take back a part of Shen Xian's military power as the Shen family could still keep Su Xier in check, but now there was no one who was willing to speak up for Shen Xian. Emperor Wen Hui only felt that his head was hurting. He asked slowly, 9 familial extermination? Normally, the officials would be able to see that the emperor's expression was not right. However, Xieding did not know what was wrong with him today. He stiffened his neck and said, "Yes." Emperor Wen Hui closed his eyes, and when he looked at Xieding again, it was as if he was looking at Xieding's wolf's ambition through his skin. Suyu was a little worried, but he didn't show it on his face. He still looked like Xieding's words made sense. Finally, a junior general stepped out and said, even though General Shun had acted willfully and recklessly this time, but the crime does not warrant death. Previously, you had also made great contributions to the court and can atone for your crimes. His Majesty is benevolent and hope that the Shen family's army has been fighting on the battlefield for many years, protecting the country and giving a lenient sentence. This young general had a good relationship with Shen Xian. He probably saw that the situation here was disadvantageous to Shen Xian, so he couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up for Shen Xian. Emperor Wen Hui had been waiting for the person to say these words, but one did not know if it was because Shen Xian's popularity was too bad that no one spoke. When this young general opened his mouth, Emperor Wen Hui's eyebrows stretched out and said, "Beloved official is right. Even though General Shun is guilty this time, he had made meritorious services in the past. If one were to say that the 9 generations of one's family were to be executed, it would seem that Zhan do not remember old feelings." "Your Majesty, you mustn't." Suyu quickly knelt on the ground. General Shin can even do things like deceiving the emperor. One does not know what will happen in the future. Xieding also hurriedly said, "Yes, yes. Your Majesty, please reconsider." The more both of them said so, the more suspicious Emperor Wen Hui felt. He did not even look at the both of them and spoke to that young general, or rather to the entire court's civil and military officials. When old General Shun was alive, he also accompanied the late emperor through life and death. The Shun family had been loyal for generations. The formidable great General Shen Xian used to be incomparably brave, and returned after defeating Shi Rong at the end of the year. It could be considered as atoning for his crimes. Zhen is not a tyrant. I will implicate the 9 generations. Shen Xian's family are innocent. Your Majesty is wise. The young general hurriedly knelt down again. Emperor Wen Hui waved his hands and said, "It is just that Shen Xian is like this, so Zhen still want to punish him. Pass down the orders to take back the Shen family's military tally and punish Shen Xian's salary for 1 year. The Shen family's army will only be allocated to the front for him to transfer, and the rest will be merged into the imperial army." Everyone gasped, and their gazes were a little strange. One could say that Emperor Wen Hui was cruel, but he did not harm the lives of the Shen family. It could be said that Emperor Wen Hui was gentle and wanted to snatch the Tiger Tally from the start. The Tiger Tally commanded the 3 armies, and to a military general, if the Tiger Tally was taken away, it meant that the soldier had lost his life on the battlefield. In the front of the Shen family's army were just some insignificant cookery soldiers, but the proper Shen family's army was merged into the imperial army. That was to say, the troops that Shen Xian had trained for so many years were all used as wedding clothes for the imperial family. The ministers were all distressed. No wonder Emperor Wen Hui was so generous in his words. Emotions were already grasping the other's lifeline. Even if Shen Xian escaped this calamity, this formidable great general would only be left with an empty shell. So what kind of deterrence was there? To keep the reputation of the Shen family, it was only to check and balance the other aristocratic families. Chapter 401. After Emperor Wen Hui finished speaking, he waved his hands in annoyance and said, "End of court." He turned around and flicked his sleeves. Following his words, it would not be long before Shen Xian and wife, who were under house arrest, and Shen Qiu would be released from the palace. It was just that at that time, one did not know if Shen Xian and wife would be able to rejoice when they were stripped of their military power. Emperor Wen Hui flicked his sleeves and left the officials looking at each other in dismay. No one had expected that such a grand and spectacular matter would be handled so simply. It could be said that it was simple. Quietly one would become a lone commander. Would Shen Xian be so angry that he would curse one's mother? Su Yu patted the soil on his knees and stood up. Coincidentally, he saw that Xieding had also tidied up his clothes. He walked over to Xieding and whispered, "What happened to you just now? Why did you suddenly speak?" Even though Su Yu had obtained Su Mingfeng's words and promised to report against Shen Xian, he did not want to get his good friend involved in this muddy water. The situation that the Xie family was facing was more complicated than his, and if one was not good, he would implicate the Xie family. Su Yu really wanted to blame himself to death. So Su Yu informed the matter to his colleagues that he was on good terms with, but did not tell Xieding. He did not expect that today Xieding would actually follow along with his words, and was almost angered by Emperor Wen Hui. Xieding shook his head. "From what you said, I know that you have other ideas. Since you want to help Shen Xian, then I will conveniently help, but it is only to help you." Xieding was an old fox that had been in the court for many years. Compared to Shen Xian, who only knew how to fight, Xieding was better at the interests of the court. He could see that Su Yu was doing the opposite to help Shen Xian, so he took the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. Hearing this, Su Yu was somewhat helpless. He felt that his good friend's casual character was the same as Xieding's son. Xie Jingxing. Thinking of Xie Jingxing, Su Yu was suddenly surprised. "Oh yes, I heard from Ming Feng that Jingxing requested for the commander's position. Is it true?" Ming Feng also know about it. Xieding shook his head and sighed. "Yes, it is true. Could it be that Jingxing is crazy?" Su Yu said incredulously, "The northern Jiang is not a place to play around." "Old Xie, are you really not worried?" "What's the use of me not being at ease? What's the use of not being at ease?" Xieding was helpless. When have I ever been able to interfere with something he has decided on? Now, I only hope that he is safe. This is all my fault, and only I can pay for it now. Actually, this isn't your fault. Hearing this, Su Yu felt a little sad. One wrong step after another. All these years, Xieding had been tormented because of what happened in the past. His conscience was uneasy, and his son was not close to him. As an outsider, he felt sad, and Xieding felt even worse. He diverted the topic, heard that the report on Shen Xian's crimes was submitted by the 9th Prince, Prince Ding. Why do I not see him today? It seems that His Majesty sent him to the Ministry of Works to inspect. Xieding frowned and said, "When he learns of this, I wonder what he will think." "What else can I think?" Su Yu sneered. "I've already taken everything I want. It doesn't matter if I keep those heads or not." This was the first time Xieding had seen Su Yu like this. He was somewhat surprised and asked, "That's right. You still haven't said why did you suddenly help Shen Xian? When did you have a friendship with the Shen family?" Su Yu looked at the people who had walked far away, and when there was no one around, he then whispered to Xieding, "Ai, how is it me? It is my son Ming Feng. He told me at night that the current Shen family is just an opening for His Majesty, and after the Shen family, it would be inevitable that it would be my Su family." The matter in court quickly spread throughout the residence. Emperor Wen Hui left Shen Xian's entire family alive and only gave orders on their positions, which made the commoners sigh that the imperial family was still very benevolent. Not only that, seeing how Emperor Wen Hui was so lenient to Shen Xian, everyone guessed that Shen Xian's prestige had not decreased and his weight in the imperial family's heart was quite heavy, so it seemed that it was not as bad as the rumors. The layman would watch the bustle while the expert would see the artistry. The commoners did not understand, but the officials could see it clearly. Without the military power, the Shen family was like a tiger without its teeth. It had an empty appearance and no longer had the prestige of the past. In the Shen residence, Shen Gui and Shen Wan were talking about the matter. Even though it was not as severe as they had imagined, they were very satisfied with the military power being taken back. This meant that Shin Xion's reputation and prestige was much lower than theirs. In the western courtyard, when Jingzha told Shin Miao the news, Shin Miao had just finished her lunch. Young lady. Jingzha looked at Shin Miao's leisurely appearance, and her heart calmed down before asking, Young lady is not worried at all. Is it that? Actually, without military power, it is not as bad as what the outside say. Shin Miao wiped her mouth with a handkerchief. No need to be afraid. If it is yours, one would not be able to run away, and if it is not yours, one would not be able to snatch it. Chapter 402. On the day that Shen Xian left the palace and returned to the residence, Shen Miao personally went to the city walls outside the palace to receive him. The rest of the Shin family were naturally dissatisfied with this ending, especially old Shin Foreign. She thought that Shen Xian would be unlucky this time, and did not think that Shen Xian's life would be spared. But hearing that Shun Gui told her what it meant for the military power to be confiscated, old Shun Foreign became happy again. Shen Xian, who had his military power confiscated, at least in terms of influence in his career, he could no longer be compared to Shen Gui and Shen Wan. Old Shun Foreign was short-sighted and did not think that the Shin family was now one. When one looked at the Shin family from the outside, naturally they would look at Shun Xian's reputation. With the loss of Shun Xian's reputation, how would the Shin family be as awe-inspiring as it was in the past? But old Shin Foreign most likely did not care. In her heart, the Shin Gui and Shun Wan that she gave birth to were many times stronger than Shin Xian. If it was not for the old general's favoritism, how would Shin Xian have today's results? Since Shun Gui was in dire straits, it was not bad to take this opportunity to expel Shun Xian's branch from the Shin family. It was just that how this family would be divided was also a clever method. In the Shin residence, old Shin Foreign had the idea of separating from the family, but Shin Miao did not put it in her heart at all. Since things had reached such a stage, it was better to go according to what she had thought before. It was one thing for the emperor to take back the military power, but the Shin family without the military power was indeed nothing to fear. If they continued to stay here, the Shin family would have a lot of enemies, and eventually Shin Xian's branch would be forced into a desperate situation. Still need to retreat. Without any reason, Shin Miao remembered Xie Jingxing's warning to her that day. This retreat word was indeed the only way out for the Shin family. He could see the key point with one glance. The carriage stopped at the corner of the palace walls so that it would not be seen by others. Adding insult to injury, those colleagues of Shin Xian who did not agree with him on politics, and those who were watching the bustle would not necessarily be guarding the palace doors. Shin Miao was clearer than anyone else what kind of conduct the Fu family had. They wanted to put on a broad-minded attitude, but secretly planned to let the other party suffer losses. Shin Xian had an illustrious reputation, and now that his tiger tally had been taken away from him, many people would be happy to see this desolate appearance. Shin Miao had suffered a lot of losses in her previous life, and in Ming Qi, she did not have any face left. She could endure the humiliation herself, but could not endure her family being treated like this. They could only stop the carriage here and wait for Shin Xian to come out and take them away. Just as he was thinking, he heard Emo Qing's low shout from outside. Stop! A gust of wind blew in and Shen Miao's eyes blurred as the curtain of the carriage was lifted, and there was one more person in the spacious carriage. Gu Yu cried out in fright, and Jingzha covered her mouth. Emo Qing's somewhat flustered voice sounded. Young lady. Shin Miao looked at the person opposite her. On top of the carriage, the young man was dressed in a dark red official robe. His peach blossom eyes were flirtatious, and his thin lips were slightly curled up. His originally serious and upright official robe looked beautiful and delicate in it, making people unable to take their eyes off him. Emo Qing withdraw. Shin Miao reprimanded in a low voice. But Emo Qing's voice tightened through the curtain of the carriage. That person's action was too fast, and he could not stop it at all. It was absolutely impossible to let a stranger and Shin Miao in the same carriage. You cannot beat him, Shin Miao calmly said to the outside before looking at Jingzha and Gu Yu. Both of you should also go out. Guard the side of the carriage. Jingzha and Gu Yu had seen Xie Jingxing before and knew that Xie Jingxing and Shin Miao had some friendship, but it was unclear to what extent the friendship had reached. To say it was intimate, both of them would occasionally oppose each other, but to say it was enemies, how would Shin Miao be so lenient to the enemy? But with a few experiences, Jingjia and Guyu also expected that Xie Jingxing would not harm Shin Miao. Shin Miao was so arrogant to let Xie Jingxing stay in the carriage, so it should be to confirm this point. Jingjia and Guyu did not say anything and got off the carriage. Chapter 403. In an instant, there were only Xie Jingxing and Shin Miao left in the carriage. Heard that the Marquis of Lin and spoke out to help in court yesterday. Many thanks to little Marquis. Shin Miao said. Xie Ding helped Su Yu to impeach Shen Xin. On the surface it was an impeachment, but in fact it was giving Shen Xin a way out. It was all right if others could not see it, but Shin Miao believed that with Xie Jingxing's skills as an old fox, it was impossible for him not to see it. Sure enough, when her half-true and half-false words came out, Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up into a smile and lazily leaned back as he loosened his arms. It is the Marquis of Lin An's own idea and has nothing to do with me? Oh. Shin Miao looked at him and smiled. Then little Marquis came uninvited to my carriage. Is it not to hear my thanks? She purposely emphasized the words my carriage. It was obvious that she was very angry with Xie Jingxing for doing this kind of uninvited things. Xie Jingxing stared at her. You intend to let Shen Xin retreat to the northwest region? Luo family? Shin Miao's heart jumped, and she looked at Xie Jingxing without speaking. She was thinking like this. Xie Jingxing had given her a retreat route, but she did not want to passively retreat like this. She had not even played this game of chess in Mingqi, so how could she lose the initiative now? Her ambition and her revenge had not even started, and if she was to be suppressed, naturally it would not do. It was not a big deal to have the military power confiscated. What Shen Xion's side valued the most was not the tiger tally that the Fu family thought, but their ability to lead troops into battle. To be able to bring out one Shen family's army, it did not mean that one could not bring out another Shen family's army. And in the currently confiscated military power, Shen Yuan's people had already mixed into the Shun family's army, and that was also Fu Xiuyi's people. It was too tiring to lead such an army and guard against people shooting arrows from the back at any time, unless one led another clean army. Starting over, the Shen family's military power was gone, but Luo Shuiyan's maiden family, the Luo family, still had it. It was just that the Luo family's military power was not as good as the Shen family's, and the matter of defending the border was not good enough. Thus it did not attract the attention of others. Shin Miao had the idea of the Luo family. She wanted to turn the Luo family into another Shen family's army, a trump card that no one knew about. Wasn't the Fu family worried all day that Shen Xian would raise his army and rebel? She would show it to the Fu family. It was just that this kind of secretive thought was actually exposed by Xie Jingxing's sharp eyes. When her thoughts were exposed, the moment of panic made Shin Miao's face flash a trace of embarrassment. If Xie Jingxing knew of her thoughts, this person, the tragic hero who had left a thick and colorful stroke in the history of Mingqi, what would he do? Threaten her? Tell on her? Or kill her? However, he probably wouldn't have such a chance. What kind of person was Shin Miao? She had experienced the most difficult times in her previous lifetime, and even if she was momentarily shocked, she would quickly suppress the emotions in her heart. She thought that Xie Jingxing was about to leave for the northern borderline, and if this trip to the northern borderline was to follow the route of the previous lifetime, Xie Jingxing would die. He would end up with 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. The deadline of 10 days was almost up. Fate was a hand that could flip the clouds and rain. Xie Jingxing's hands and eyes were omnipotent. So what if his mind was treacherous? In the end, he would not be able to escape that ending. Shin Miao looked up at Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was really good looking. In the previous lifetime, when Shin Miao stayed in the 6 palaces, she had seen a lot of talented and handsome youths. Even Fu Xiuyi, whom she had been pining for, did not have this kind of grace. Long eyebrows that slanted to the temples, a high-nosed bridge, thin lips that were slightly raised but very rosy. His smile always had a bit of evilness. His handsomeness was somewhat overbearing, with a clear outline that was hard and cold, but he had a pair of dark and bright peach blossom eyes. When he looked at people, he was affectionate but ruthless, giving an illusion of gentleness. Chapter 404. It was just that under this person's cynical and unruly appearance, only one knew what kind of black heart he had. Xie Jingxing was still a youth and had a youthful handsomeness and heroic spirit, but today he was wearing a dark red court robe which made him look more mature. Fu Ming once read a section of Ming Qi's Xie family's history and lamented, "A young talent, an eternal character, to die young, the sorrow of Ming Qi." One could see the high evaluation of Xie Jingxing. When Xin Miao really noticed Xie Jingxing, it was already later, and she only saw him from afar at the palace banquet. She vaguely felt that he was a very good-looking young man, but Fu Xiuyi's attitude towards him was not warm. Today's Xie Jingxing was still a miserable youth. Who would have thought that it would not be long before this handsome, smiling youth would lose his life on the battlefield? There was an additional trace of pity in Shan Miao's eyes. Being reborn, she was not a good-hearted person, but Fu Ming and Wan Yu had praised him before, so there was an additional trace of appreciation. Her uncertain and sometimes vigilant and sometimes sympathetic gaze made Xie Jingxing somewhat inexplicable. Suddenly he thought of the first time he saw Xin Miao at the entrance of Guangwen Tang. Xin Miao also used such a pitiful expression to look at him. Xie Jingxing asked thoughtfully, "You pity me?" This person was simply better at observing one's words and body language than her. Xin Miao secretly thought in her heart, but a smile floated on her face. What qualifications do I have to pity others? Xie Jingxing made an sound as if he felt that what she said was reasonable. But he suddenly reached out to lift the curtain of the carriage. This was a remote place, and no one would come over. Lifting a corner of the curtain of the carriage, one could see the high palace walls. Xin Miao's gaze could not help but be somewhat distant. She had lived in the palace for so many years and was reborn, but she was still unable to escape this fate. But she did not regret it. What was the purpose of living? The dead could no longer be revived. Living was naturally to take revenge. Xin Miao looked carefully, as if she wanted to engrave every piece of the palace walls in her eyes. When Xie Jingxing saw it, his lips curled up. "You want to live in?" Xin Miao was slightly startled. "If you want to live in, I can help you," Xie Jingxing said. His tone was inexplicable, but his smile seemed to hide something deeper. "When the time comes, how will you thank me? If little Marquis is able to burn down this palace, perhaps I will be endlessly grateful to you," Xin Miao answered. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows in surprise. "I thought you wanted to be a noble person." "I want to be a noble person." Xin Miao turned her head and looked at him with a sarcastic smile. "But not the kind of noble person that you were talking about. They are nobles who are even nobler than nobles." "You want to be the Empress?" "Empress?" Xin Miao's eyes were slightly absent-minded. She also wore court attire and had a full head of phoenix hairpins. During the coronation ceremony of the Emperor and Empress, the scene was boundless. The officials knelt down and the common people cheered. She was the mother of the world. At that time, she thought she had everything she wanted. But now, it seemed that the higher one climbed, the more painful the fall would be. Empress? It was just an empty reputation. "It is easy to be an empress," Xie Jingxing plainly said. "It is difficult to be an emperor." The winds and clouds of Ming Qi were gathering, and the 9 princes each had their own merits. Even the crown prince's position was not very stable. Who knew which hand the imperial seal would fall into in the future? For a noble family to marry their daughter to a prince, was it not a gamble for one's future? Riches were sought in danger, and greed was a human's instinct. A general success was built on the bones of 10,000 people. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. Since a female had chosen the wrong person, naturally she had to follow. Xie Jingxing casually said, "Who did you choose?" Chapter 405. He was asking her which prince she favored, which one did she want to marry, and which one did she want to support. "Little Marquis, who do you think has a better future?" Xin Miao asked back. "Looking at one's physiognomy, no one has a future." Xie Jingxing's words were horrifying to hear. "What about you?" "Then look for someone with a future." "Then what do you think of me?" Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows and asked. Most likely his words were to tease Xin Miao, as he was not serious about it. "Little Marquis also does not have a future." Shen Miao looked at him seriously. Xie Jingxing was choked by Shen Miao's words. Even though he was not angry, he was somewhat displeased. He thought that all the females that he had met adored him, and all the males that he had met were afraid of him, but Shen Miao did not adore him, nor was she afraid of him. She even kept stroking the tiger's fur. Was he too kind to Shen Miao? So it made Shen Miao feel that he was a person with a good temper? What exactly does little Marquis want to say? If you are done, then quickly leave. Shen Miao impolitely asked him to leave. It would not be good to be seen and misunderstood by others. Misunderstanding? Xie Jingxing's eyes flashed with a smile as he deliberately said softly, "What misunderstanding?" A lecher taking advantage of a young female from a good family. Shen Miao did not even blink as she answered neatly. She could see that Xie Jingxing was shameless in the matter of despising etiquette and rules. Even though Xie Jingxing had seen all kinds of orioles and swallows, he was somewhat dizzy from Shen Miao's valiant words. He coughed twice and sat up straight. He did not tease Shen Miao anymore and said, "Retreat to the northwestern region, and the faster the better. The longer it drags on, it would not be good for Shen Xian." Shen Miao looked up at him, as she did not expect that Xie Jingxing would remind her of such a sentence. After all, she did not want to go up against Xie Jingxing, and it was already very good that Xie Jingxing did not have any hostility towards her. "Many thanks," Xie Jingxing said. "It would be best if Shen Xian could leave the Ding capital before I set off." Shen Miao was somewhat helpless. That would also need to succeed. Not everyone had the same ability as Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao always felt that the background that Xie Jingxing relied on did not seem to be the residence of the Marquis of Lineage, and was even above the residence of the Marquis of Lineage. But in Ming Qi, other than the imperial family, what else was there that was more powerful than the residence of the Marquis of Lineage? And the imperial family and Xie Jingxing were now opposing each other. Shen Miao could not guess. Xie Jingxing paused for a moment, and suddenly lifted the curtain of the carriage and flew out. He came and left quickly, and before Shen Miao could react, she heard someone calling from outside, "Foreign, master, eldest young master." Shen Miao lifted the curtain of the carriage and saw Shen Xian and wife and Shen Xiu walking over from the corner of the city gates. When she saw Jingjia and Guyu, she was surprised for a moment. Shen Miao looked around again and did not find any trace of Xie Jingxing. She thought that this person was very alert and his skills were good. To appear and disappear so mysteriously, he could be the ancestor of the gentleman on the beam. Luo Shuiyin saw Jingjia and walked over quickly, just in time to see Shen Miao jumping down the carriage. After not seeing for a few days, Shen Xian and wife and Shen Xiu had become a lot more haggard. Shen Miao had seen the imperial family's methods before. Sometimes when one had not decided on how to deal with a person, house arrest could wear down a person's willpower. Shen Xian's family were all martial people and had firm willpower, but to leave Shen Miao in the residence, it would inevitably make one think more. Luo Shuiyin took a few steps forward and pulled Shen Miao's hands to size her up. "Jiao Jiao, was there anyone who made things difficult for you these few days?" Shen Miao shook her head. Luo Shuiyin then gave a sigh of relief. Shen Xiu asked, "Why did younger sister not stay in the residence and ran over here?" "Heard that father and mother returned to the residence today and feared that there would not be a horse carriage, thus came over to receive." Shen Miao smiled. Chapter 406. Shen Xian moved his lips, wanting to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He knew that there were a lot of people watching the show, and Shen Miao's action was to avoid the eyes and ears of others, and it was very considerate. It was just that he had promised to protect his wife and child, but now his tiger tally had been snatched away by someone else. How could he not feel depressed? He silently boarded the carriage, and Luo Shuiyin did not want Shen Miao to worry, so she also pulled Shen Miao into the carriage. Jingjia and the rest sat in the carriage at the back, and there was only Shen Miao's family in the front carriage. "Mother, what did His Majesty say?" Shen Miao asked. Luo Shuiyin hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, "It's nothing. It's just a misunderstanding." Shen Miao said, "The tiger tally was taken away. How can it be a misunderstanding?" Shen Xiu was surprised for a moment and subconsciously looked at Shen Xian. Having the tiger tally taken away, the one who was the most angry should be Shen Xian. He also did not know where the mistake was. The only possibility was that there was a problem within the Shin family's army, otherwise who would know about the matter of disobeying orders and massacring the city. Actually, there is nothing wrong with the tiger tally being taken away. Luo Shuiyin tried to comfort Shin Miao as she was afraid that Shin Miao would feel uneasy. He said, even without the tiger seal, we can still fight. Your father is still a general. We will be the same as before. Shin Miao's eyes hung down as Shin Xian and Shin Qiu looked at her worriedly. In the past, Shin Miao was somewhat arrogant and willful, but that was because she had the backing of the formidable great general. Once there was no backing, it was normal for this noble young lady to not be able to accept it. Is it still going to war? Shin Miao softly said, bring the frontline people to war and bring the cooks to war? Luo Shuiyin and Shin Qiu were instantly stunned. These days they were used to Shin Miao's gentle and obedient manner, and when they suddenly heard such a sharp question, it was somewhat unbelievable. Shin Xian's face turned livid. The pride of a general was not to be trampled on by anyone. Emperor Wen Hui spared his life, but gave him a deep humiliation which made him feel worse than killing Shin Xian. Of course, we can still fight without the tiger tally, but your majesty can always send another deputy general, assistant general, military officer, and supervisor. When you give orders, you have to look at other people's faces. When you mobilize the three armies, you have to use other people's talismans. Isn't the title of general just an empty shell? Shin Miao raised her head and her pair of eyes were incomparably clear, as if she was speaking the most ordinary household words. But who had seen such an overbearing Shin Miao before? Perhaps Shin Qiu had seen it before, but Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyin had never seen it before. Moreover, he was directly talking about the matters of the imperial court. Shin Xian clenched his fists but still comforted. Jiao Jiao, father will clear his name and the Shin family army will eventually return to father's hands. Jiao Jiao, your identity will not change. Shin Xian's entire life was based on his military achievements, and he believed that in Ming Qi, other than Xieding, no one could be as brave as him. A treasured sword was not afraid of being hidden too deeply. There would come a day when it would be unsheathed again. But how long do we have to wait? By that time, would the Shin family army who had already become the imperial army still be loyal to father? Even now, there are spies under father's command. In the future, who can guarantee that there won't be more? Hearing this, Luo Shuiyin's expression turned solemn as she asked, Jiao Jiao, who told you these words? Shin Miao was able to know that Shin Xian's tiger tally was taken away, and was also able to know that the Shin family's army was placed in the imperial army because these were things that everyone knew. But the matter of there being a traitor in the Shin family's army was something that was not heard from the outside. Those who were able to say such things to Shin Miao would at least have done some research on the matters of the imperial court. Luo Shuiyin was afraid that Shin Miao was being used by others. Shin Miao shook her head. I am not a fool. I might not really not know about the things that others do not tell me. Shin Qiu said, younger sister is very smart. On the matter of Prince Yu, Shin Qiu could see Shin Miao's ability. He knew that Shin Miao's vision was not like that of an unmarried young female. She was exceptionally ruthless, but could see it clearly. Chapter 407. It was rare for Shin Qiu to say such things, so Shin Xian frowned and asked, Jiao Jiao, what exactly do you want to say? Since the Shin family army is no longer ours, then there is no need for the Shin family army. How about giving up? Shin Miao's words were shocking. Jiao Jiao. Luo Shuiyin stopped her words and suddenly felt that her tone was too harsh and quickly softened. The Shin family army was brought up by your father, and there are countless of subordinates. How is it easy to say to give up? It is because of the friendship of comrades on the battlefield. This, impossible. Then what is father prepared to do? Shin Miao asked back, continue to endure silently like this? Enduring silently might be able to wait for a good opportunity, but if one were to be suppressed by others, at the end there would be nothing left. Shin Xian stared at Shin Miao, as if he had never known this daughter of his before. There was a thoughtful expression on his face as he asked, what does Jiao Jiao think should be done? The east side is not bright, but the west side is bright. Shin Miao's eyes were astonishingly bright. Father can lead the Shin family army well. Why not lead other armies well? Shin Xian was surprised for a moment before he laughed and caressed Shan Miao's head, as if Shan Miao's words made him much happier. He said, "Indeed, a young lady that has not grown up. In this world, how would there be so many soldiers for others to lead?" At the end, there was a faint sadness in his words. The Shin family army was like a child that Shin Xian had raised up, and now the pain of losing a child. How could words be used to describe it? Shin Miao smiled faintly. Then, what about the Luo family? Shin Xian's smile abruptly stopped. Luo Shuiyin and Shun Xiu thought of something at the same time, and their eyes landed on Shin Miao. Shin Miao said unhurriedly, "In Weizu's hands, there is still a group of scattered soldiers. Even though it cannot be compared to the previous Shin family army, there are still a lot of them. If slowly trained, it may not be the next Shin family army." Luo Shuiyan's maiden family. The Luo family was a family of generals, but it was a declining family of generals. It was true that there were soldiers under them, but after Shan Xian was stationed in the northwestern region, the Luo family soldiers in the Shaochun city disarmed and returned to the fields. Even though they still had the name of soldiers, they took the rations and did not do anything. After so many years, they were no different from ordinary people. How can this be? The Shin family had been loyal to the monarch for so many years, and serving the monarch was an instinct. Shin Miao's words could even be said to be disgraceful. Keeping his own soldiers in a place unknown to the emperor. Luo Shuiyin said, "Jiao Jiao, this is not a joke." She did not know how to explain to Shin Miao how taboo the imperial family had towards the generals who held the army. Shin Miao was just a young lady, so how could she understand? It was Shun Xiu who spoke very little that opened his mouth. Younger sister wants to use the Luo family's army to replace the Shin family's army? It cannot be considered as a replacement. Shin Miao gently smiled. It is just that father is a general after all, and cannot have no one by his side. Naturally, there must be followers. Since that is the case, what is the difference between the Shin family's army and the Luo family's army? With the Luo family's army, wouldn't it be good to have one more chip to protect oneself? She described her rebellious words as self-protection, which at least made it sound less frightening. Luo Shuiyin felt that Shin Miao's words today were somewhat inconceivable, and when she looked up, she saw Shin Xian's tightly knitted brows, as if he was seriously thinking about Shin Miao's words, and felt a headache. Shin Xian looked at Shin Miao and deliberately guided Shin Miao's words. "What Jiao Jiao said sounds very good, but the Luo family's army is far away in the Shaochun city. How do we go over?" "That would have to depend on father's decision." Shin Miao smiled as she looked at him. "Perhaps father can try and explain to his majesty to retreat to the northwestern region and be willing to go to the Shaochun city to defend and set off today." Shin Xian and the three of them were stunned again. The Shaochun city was a small city at the northwestern border and was thousands of mountains and rivers away from the Ding capital. If Shin Xian really made this request, anyone would think that it was because the tiger tally was taken away, and this formidable great general was disheartened that he would be stationed at the small border. As for the prestige of the formidable great general, it would be slowly drowned out by history. Shin Xian's tiger eyes stared. This is retreat. No. There would be talented people appearing in every generation, and it was good to hide one's capabilities and bide one's time. But Shin Xian was no longer a youthful youth. He was already past his 20s, and if he was not used, and there was no suitable opportunity to return, even if the Luo family's group of people were trained, he could only stay at the border. It was probably the most tragic thing in the world to be a hero past his prime before his ambition was fulfilled. Talented people would be born in every generation, and it was good to keep a low profile, but Shin Xian was no longer a green youth. He was already past his 20s, and if he was not used, there would not be a suitable opportunity to return. Even if the Luo family's people were trained, they could only stay at the border. It was probably the most tragic thing in the world to be a hero past his prime before his ambition was fulfilled. Retreat in order to advance. There is a saying in the art of war. "Father, what are you afraid of?" Shin Miao did not give in at all. That pair of clear and indifferent eyes that were facing them, for the first time, showed a provocative look, afraid of being unable to recover after a setback, afraid of retreating again and again until there is no more retreat, or afraid that time is fleeting and it would be difficult to stand out. These few words made Shin Xian's heart tighten. Not only Shin Xian, Luo Shuiyin and Shin Xiao were also stunned. Shin Xian watched Shun Miao attentively, and he suddenly discovered that this delicate and soft-looking daughter seemed to have inherited the tenacity and arrogance in his bones. Moreover, Shin Miao chuckled, within 2 years, His Majesty will definitely summon father back to the capital. The day we enter the capital is the day we flourish. Chapter 408. The lights in the western courtyard of the Shun residence were also brightly lit throughout the night. Xingui and Shen Wan wanted to inquire about it, but Shun Xian directly let his trusted aide guard the courtyard doors so that not even a mosquito could fly in. Trying to find out what was said was easier said than done. In the room, Shin Xiao poured a cup of tea for Shen Miao and said, "Younger sister, speak slowly." Regarding military matters, the Shin family had Shin Xian, Luo Shuiyin, and Shen Xiao, but Shen Miao never seemed to have anything to do with these matters. A pampered young lady who was far away in the Ding capital. Perhaps she did not even know the layout of the aristocratic families in the Ding capital. The matters of the military were treacherous and difficult to distinguish, and the forces involved were not as simple as it looked on the surface. Even officials could not differentiate clearly, much less Shin Miao. But when Shen Miao said it, she said it so logically that Shin Xian and wife could not help but raise their eyebrows. "Abandon the Shun family's army and pick up the Luo family's army," Luo Shuiyin said. "But the Shin family's army are all elites and the Luo family's army." Speaking of the troops that her father had led before, Luo Shuiyin was somewhat sad. How can it be compared to the Shin family's army? Although the Luo family army is scattered, it is important to be clean. Shin Miao said, "There is already a traitor in father's Shun family army, and to bring such a troop to war, who knows if one would be stabbed in the back?" As soon as he said this, the three of them fell silent. Everyone did not want to see a traitor among the soldiers who had been by their side through thick and thin, and who had single-handedly raised them up. Shin Xian said, "I also thought about what Jiao Jiao said." Shin Xiao and Luo Shuiyin looked at Shin Xian at the same time. At this moment, Shin Xian's suspicion from before faded away, and when he looked at Shen Miao, there was admiration in his eyes. If one is indecisive, one would definitely suffer from chaos. "But what did you mean when you said in the carriage that you would summon me to the capital within 2 years? "Correct." Shin Xiao also turned his head to look at Shen Miao. How did younger sister know that His Majesty would summon father back to the capital within 2 years? Who would be able to guess the emperor's thoughts? When Shin Miao said those words, it seemed to have some meaning. Luo Shuiyin suddenly became nervous. She was thinking about the long term, and the person who could understand the emperor's mind would definitely be someone around Emperor Wen Hui. Could it be Prince Ding? Prince Ding and Shen Miao's past matters had been exposed, and Luo Shuiyin's greatest worry was that Shen Miao would be dragged into the muddy waters of the fight for the throne between the princes and be used as a bargaining chip for no reason. Shen Miao's eyes hung down. Within 2 years, Emperor Wen Hui would naturally summon Shin Xian back to the capital. Because of the Ming Qi's tribute, there was the Qin country in the north and the Great Liang in the west. Thus the Ming Qi, which was caught in the middle, was in a precarious situation. At that time, Emperor Wen Hui's health was not very good. The crown prince was bedridden. Prince Zhou and Prince Li fought till their heads were broken and bleeding, and Fu Xiaoyi's hidden big net was gradually spread out. Shin Xian was a loyal general and would definitely be used by Emperor Wen Hui to deter the enemy countries. Just like in the previous lifetime, even if the imperial family was still suppressing the Shin family's army at that time, they still left a line, and Shin Xian would be squeezed dry by the imperial family to the last drop of oil. It was just that these words could not be said to the outside. Shin Miao gently smiled as she faced the different gazes of the few people. "I only had a very realistic dream." In the dream, within 2 years, father would make a comeback and the formidable great general's name would not be disgraced. These words were actually somewhat perfunctory, but Shen Miao said it gently, and her pair of eyes were so clear that even if one did not believe it, their heart would soften by half. Whether one could be recalled back to the capital within 2 years, this was something that no one could say clearly. But whether it was 1 year, 2 years, or 3 or 4 years, it was indeed the best way to retreat to the northwestern region at this moment. Not only was it to make a comeback, It was also because the fight for the throne was currently at an intense time. If the Shin family were to stay in the Ding capital, even if they did not have military power, they would still be implicated. It was this logic to retreat bravely in the face of a crisis. Before achieving success, one must first protect one's family. Chapter 409. This was what Shin Xian thought. He smiled as he looked at Shin Miao. Since Jiao Jiao said that it is a dream, then the dream will definitely come true. Father believes you. He did not intend to delve into the reason at all. The words "father believes you" almost made Shin Miao cry. In the beginning, she wanted to marry Fu Xiui no matter what, and Shin Xian actually tried his best to stop her. It was only after she threatened to kill herself that Shin Xian finally relented. The proud general, who had been giving orders all his life, revealed a dejected and helpless expression. He said, "Since you have chosen him, I believe you." So he pushed the Shin family to a dead end. Shin Miao closed her eyes and the tragic past disappeared. She said, "If father really believed what I said, then tomorrow one will request his majesty to retreat to the Shaochun city." Tomorrow? Luo Shuiyan was surprised. Why so urgent? It is precisely because you are in such a hurry that his majesty will think that father was dissatisfied with having the tiger tally taken away and acted in a fit of pique. I won't think too much, Shin Miao explained. Shin Xiu still wanted to say something, but Shin Xian ordered. Then do it? Shin Xian. Luo Shuiyan was somewhat anxious. After all, these were all important matters. Even though what Shin Miao said was somewhat reasonable, but to make such a hasty decision was too sloppy. Shin Xian shook his head. You and I have been on the battlefield for many years, but we are not as clear as Jiao Jiao. He looked at Shin Miao, and there was some complexity in his eyes. Finally, he stretched out his hand and rubbed Shin Miao's head. If Jiao Jiao is a male, how many people in the world can be compared? Shin Miao looked at him quietly. What she said today was something that an unmarried girl would never be able to think of. What kind of person was Shin Xian? Even though he was a boorish person, it did not mean that he did not have a brain. One feared that he had long seen the suspicious points on her. It was just that Shin Xian did not expose it. Even if he did, Shin Miao would not tell Shin Xian the secret of his rebirth. Perhaps this was the unconditional trust between relatives. Just like how Shin Xian had always been on her side in her previous life. The Shin family will be fine, Shin Miao promised. Father will present the report in the morning court tomorrow. Shin Xian smiled and pulled Luo Shuiyan up. Furen should also rest early. Luo Shuiyan wanted to say something, but when she saw Shin Xian's expression, she suddenly shut her mouth. She had followed Shin Xian for so many years, and Shin Xian was naturally full of confidence. She had never seen such a heavy expression before. He was supposed to be a hero revered by the people, but he was going to be stripped of his military power and had to defend a small place at the border. No one was more aggrieved than Shin Xian at this moment. For the first time, her face softened as she supported Shin Xian. All right? It was Shun Xiu who was lagging behind, and looked at Shun Miao wanting to speak but hesitating. Finally, he could not help but said, "Younger sister, you want father to rebel?" Among the Shin family, Shin Xiu was the clearest about the hostility in Shun Miao's bones. Prince Yu of the first rank coveted her, so she did not leave a single person in Prince Yu residence alive. The Jing family schemed against her, and now she ended up dying without a complete corpse. The emperor had taken away the Shin family's tiger tally and Shen Miao's seemingly retreating action. Was it really just to protect herself? Eating the monarch's salary, one must be loyal to the monarch. Shin Miao smiled lightly. The Shin family has always been loyal to the monarch and loved the country, so how would such a thing happen? Eldest brother better not think too much. If the walls have ears and were to be heard by others, one fear that you and I will be in trouble. Shin Xiu paused before saying, "That would be the best. Younger sister, do not do silly things." He then turned and walked out of the room. Shin Miao slowly sat down on her seat. She really wanted to rebel, but how to rebel without leaving behind a bad reputation was also a big matter. The most urgent matter was naturally to avoid disaster. But when she returned, she would definitely send a big gift to the Fu family. Chapter 410. One could only hope that the Fu family could swallow it. The matter of Shen Xian being stripped of his military power was lively for a day in the Ding capital, and on the second day, it was covered by new rumors. There were new things happening in Mingqi every day, and such a scene was not new. But on the second day, it was still Shen Xian's matter that was being discussed in the streets and alleys. It was said that on the second day after the formidable great General Shen Xian's military tally was taken away, he handed a memorial to Emperor Wen Hui in front of all the civil and military officials, proposing to bring the remaining frontline troops and the scattered Shen family guards to retreat to the Shaochun city. The once illustrious great general was going to defend a small place at the borders. Others felt that it was inconceivable, and Shen Xian himself felt even more aggrieved. To feel aggrieved, but to take the initiative to submit a memorial. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with Emperor Wen Hui's punishment and made the decision in a fit of pique. The storyteller in the restaurant explained the matter clearly and logically, saying that Emperor Wen Hui's expression changed on the spot in the throne room and threw the memorial at Shen Xian's face. One did not think that Shen Xian was still stubborn and stubbornly requested to retreat to the Shaochun city. Would the emperor tolerate one's pique? Even if one had great meritorious service, it would be useless. Did you not want to retreat to the small place at the borders? Good. Very good. Then you go and defend. Thus the entire Ding capital knew that the formidable great general would be leaving the capital for the Shaochun city tomorrow. Almost everyone in the restaurant was talking about the matter. Some people felt that Shen Xian did the right thing. The formidable great general had become a commander without an army and would be aggrieved to stay in the Ding capital. It was better to go far away and avoid getting tired of it. Some people, however, felt that Shen Xian was held up too high and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. It was obvious that he had deceived the emperor first and was lucky to keep his life. But he still dared to throw his face at Emperor Wen Hui. If it was not for Emperor Wen Hui's benevolence, if it was another ruler, one feared that he would have given a heavier punishment. In Kuaihua Lu, Ji Yushu held his chin and looked at Gao Yang. What do you think this Shen Xian's intention is? To abandon the Shen family's army in the Ding capital? If that is the case, then one really have some boldness and is not a reckless martial artist. Gao Yang sighed. To retreat bravely in the face of a crisis, not everyone can do it. After drinking a mouthful of tea, Gao Yang then said to Xie Jingxing, who was silent at the side, "Why are you not speaking?" Xie Jingxing was interrupted and recovered to look at both of them. The Shen family moves too fast. Fast? Ji Yushu was somewhat puzzled. Xie Jingxing played with the teacup in his hand as a faint smile appeared on his lips. Pointing out a path to Shen Miao was to let the Shen family have a way out, but one did not expect that the Shen family's hands and feet would be so fast. He had just been stripped of his tiger tally yesterday, and today he went to the imperial court to ask for permission to withdraw. Shen Xian was a person who sought stability, and to be able to make Shen Xian make such a choice in such a short period of time. Shen Miao must have said something to him. Emperor Wen Hui let Shen Xian pack up and leave the capital. On the surface, it was to embarrass Shen Xian, but he did not know that his thoughts were completely seen through by a little girl from the Shen family. If one knew about it, one did not know what kind of feeling one would have in one's heart. Xie Jingxing had a feeling that in this game of chess in Mingqi, Shen Miao would perhaps occupy a position that could lift something heavy as if it was light. It was just that. For him who was about to leave the capital, this did not have any meaning. Yushu will leave the capital with me, he said. Gao Yang, I will leave the rest to you. Ji Yushu touched his nose and showed some excitement. All right. Third older brother Xie. The pastries that the chefs here make are just too unpalatable. It is still third older brother's chefs that are good. At least one do not need to starve. Gao Yang rolled his eyes at him and said coldly, the entire Ding capital has been eaten by you. Since when do you starve? Finishing, he changed into a serious look and said to Xie Jingxing, do not worry. Leave this to me. Chapter 411. Xie Jingxing nodded his head. The same news naturally spread to other places. The Shen family was a large family in the Ding capital, and there were many colleagues who had dealings with the Shen family. Just because of Shen Xian's prestige, there were many officials who wanted to curry favor with him. But when the wall is down, everyone pushes it, and when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the person leaves, the tea cools. This time Shin Xian was obviously demoted and left the capital. When he went to the crowded Shun family's residence, other than a few families who were on good terms with Shin Xian, there was no one else. Shin Miao made a trip to Guangwentang. To leave the Ding capital, naturally she could not go to Guangwentang. Some time ago, because of Shin Miao's change in temperament, the students in Guangwentang were somewhat afraid of her. But seeing that the Shun family's military power was confiscated, there were unscrupulous faces that ridiculed her. It was just that Shun Miao did not even turn her head as she walked over, as if she did not hear anything, which made those noble children feel bored. When Feng and Ning saw her, she cried and grabbed her sleeves. What to do? Shin Miao, when will you return after this trip? Shun Miao was somewhat at a loss with Feng and Ning's tears. In all fairness, in the previous lifetime, because of her stupidity, the noble females in the Ding capital were not willing to be associated with her. In this lifetime, she had a cold heart and did not deliberately try to attract anyone's liking. This Feng and Ning accidentally became one of her friends. Even though her temperament was a little arrogant, she did not have any bad intentions. Sometimes looking at her age, Shin Miao would think of Wan Yu. She comforted, he will return not long later. Liar. Feng and Ning sobbed. I heard from father that this time General Shun had angered his majesty. Now that his majesty is angry, how could he return so quickly? Shin Miao, you have to write to me. By the time you return, will I be married? Shin Miao almost laughed out, but when she saw Feng and Ning's red eyes, she could not laugh anymore. She was clearer than anyone else about the Feng family's ending and Feng and Ning's ending. Even though the Feng family would not fall after 2 years, but she patted Feng and Ning's shoulders. It is all right. I will be able to see the day you marry. Feng and Ning still wanted to say something, but saw Pei Lang walking in with a book. Pei Lang was dressed in green as he stood on the stage. His gaze landed on Shin Miao and paused for a moment before saying, Shin Miao, come with me. If Shin Miao were to leave Guangwentang, it was only right for her to bid farewell to Pei Lang. Everyone did not feel that there was anything wrong. Feng and Ning unwillingly released Shin Miao's sleeves and allowed Shin Miao to follow Pei Lang out of the academy. Pei Lang brought Shin Miao to the triangular courtyard of Guangwentang. The teachers of Guangwentang all lived in the residences in the academy, and this was Pei Lang's own residence, so no one else could enter. He pushed the door and walked into the nearest study. Shin Miao followed in and closed the door at the right time. You're leaving? This time, Pei Lang didn't beat around the bush as usual and asked directly. Shin Miao nodded. Pei Lang's expression changed and he hesitated for a moment before saying, Lu Ying's matter. Young Lady Lu Ying has already been settled. Shin Miao interrupted his words. She is living very well in the embroidery shop. Her double-sided embroidery is outstanding, and in the future it would be good to rely on her skills to make a living as an embroidery mother. Perhaps she would be able to take in a few disciples. Pei Lang's expression gradually relaxed. Shin Xian's entire family was about to leave the capital, and he was afraid that Lu Ying's matter had not been settled. He had relaxed but saw Shin Miao staring at his eyes. Then how is the matter that teacher Pei has considered? Pei Lang was startled. The matter that Shin Miao was talking about was naturally the matter of him being a spy by Fu Xiuyi's side. That day at Kuaihua Lu, Pei Lang had already expressed his attitude, but as to how to proceed, he needed to think further. Hearing that, Pei Lang frowned. What do you want to say? Chapter 412. 2 years. Shin Miao said, within 2 years, I must return to the capital. At that time, Teacher Pei must become His Highness Prince Ding's aide and the most dependable one. Pei Lang smiled, but there was some anger in his smile. Shin Miao, aren't you overestimating me? I am just a poor scholar and do not have anything. Even if I managed to sneak into His Highness Prince Ding's side, how would I be able to obtain the most dependable reputation? Teacher need not belittle yourself. Teacher is a 1,000-li horse, and naturally there will be Bo Lu who appreciates you. Shin Miao smiled gently. If one is not a 1,000-li horse, one must see oneself as a 1,000-li horse in order to let Bo Lu appreciate. She lowered her voice and looked at Pei Lang provocatively. If teacher cannot do it, You guess how about I tell the story of Prefectural Magistrate Pei's residence to young Lady Lu Ying and say that the person who made me do all these was teacher? Does teacher think that young Lady Lu Ying would be moved to tears? You. Pei Lang was flustered. Xin Miao's words were clearly a threat, threatening that if he could not be Fu Xiuyi's left and right arm, then she would tell Lu Ying about these things. Lu Ying already had resentment towards the matter of that year, and if she was told that he was the one who arranged it, Lu Ying might return to Bao Xianglu in a fit of anger. Pei Lang said, I have never seen such a vicious and cunning female like you. The young female in front of him did not have any difference in age and would not respect him as a teacher. Pei Lang even had an illusion that Xin Miao was always suppressing him. Her provocations and threats seemed to contain some kind of inexplicable resentment, making Pei Lang somewhat embarrassed. Who would have thought that the seemingly gentle and delicate young female would have a heart that was even more terrifying and cold than the matrons in the house? Teacher must be joking. The ways of the world are difficult, and one is only struggling to survive. Shen Miao smiled modestly, as if she was a disciple who was being admonished by a teacher. Her hands quietly took out an item from her sleeves and reached into Pei Lang's sleeves to hand it over to him. Pei Lang was startled for a moment as the soft fingertips rested on his wrist, but after a slight touch, it moved away as if it was a butterfly spreading its wings to fly. For some strange reason, Pei Lang actually had an impulse to keep her, but it was only for a moment before he sobered up and pinched the letter-like thing in his sleeves as he looked at Shen Miao in puzzlement. If teacher is free, naturally you can take a peek at the embroidery manor where young Lady Lu Ying is at. In addition, there are some other matters that the top hope teacher will follow in to do. Shen Miao said. Pei Lang's body stiffened, and instead of being angry, he laughed. Shen Miao, you want me to be your puppet? A scholar has the pride of a scholar. Sir, you are so knowledgeable and have such a lofty and unyielding character. I admire you very much. If it were any other scholar, I would definitely not use such methods. Shen Miao raised her head and looked at Pei Lang's somewhat angry expression, but her lips raised. But does teacher still have a choice? It is all right if teacher is not willing to do it. Even if separated by 1,000 mountains and 10,000 rivers, I naturally have ways to tell stories to young Lady Lu Ying. She smiled gently, but her tone was sharp. Pei Lang felt an indescribable anger burning in his heart, and he felt inexplicably aggrieved. In front of Shen Miao, he did not have any dignity as a teacher. Every time he felt that he wanted to get angry, but when he saw Shen Miao's complacent look, he could not get angry. Pei Lang even thought that in the previous lifetime he owed Shen Miao something, and in this lifetime Shen Miao came to collect the debt. He suppressed the humiliation in his heart and said, Can one meet your requirements by doing according to the top's instructions? I believe in teacher's ability. Shen Miao looked down. On that letter, it was the things that Fu Xiuyi would do in the next few years. Fu Xiuyi looked like he did not have any ambition on the surface, but he was secretly recruiting knowledgeable people. As for what kind of means to recruit and unearth intelligent people, no one was clearer than Shen Miao. Pei Lang was not an ordinary person, and as long as he revealed a little bit of his talent, naturally Fu Xiuyi would pick him. Chapter 413. And to get Fu Xiuyi's attention, one needed to plan step by step. In the entire letter, Shen Miao did not mention what she wanted Pei Lang to do, and only told Pei Lang about the opportunity to get close to Fu Xiuyi. How to get Fu Xiuyi's trust would depend on what Pei Lang did. This was also the greatest trust that Shen Miao could give to Pei Lang. In the previous lifetime, Fu Xiuyi and Pei Lang were on the same boat, and now she was the first to discover this horse and even left a mark on it. She also let Fu Xiuyi have a taste of being betrayed by a close person. She swept a glance at Pei Lang, and her heart suddenly felt somewhat apprehensive. The matter that was instructed was done, and she did not want to speak more with Pei Lang before turning around to leave. Shen Miao. It was Pei Lang who called out to her. He hesitated for a moment before finally spitting out 2 words, Take care. Shen Miao was somewhat surprised, but only lightly said, Many thanks, before leaving. Only Pei Lang was left standing at the same spot, and his eyes were somewhat complicated as he stared at Shen Miao's back. When Shen Miao left Pei Lang's courtyard, she saw a soft white dumpling standing in the garden outside the academy. When he saw her, his eyes lit up as he ran over and cried out in surprise, "Older Shin's sister." Su Ming Lang rolled over like a dumpling. Shin Miao. In fact, Su Ming Lang was already over 10 years old this year, but one did not know if it was because the Su family had raised him too well that he was different from Su Mingfeng's mature older brother. Su Ming Lang looked more childish than a 5- or 6-year-old child. He ran a few steps before panting. Shin Miao walked in front of him and held his plump arms. "What is the matter?" "Older Shin sister, you are leaving?" Su Ming Lang puffed and puffed for a while. "Can I obediently wait here for you to return?" Shin Miao was stunned for a moment. When everyone here knew that Shin Xian was going to the Shao Chun city, the first thing they said was, "When will you return, or will you not return?" Everyone felt that once Shin Xian left, perhaps he would stay in the Shao Chun city forever. Su Ming Lang's first sentence was to wait for her return, as if he was certain that Shin Miao would definitely return to the Ding capital. Shin Miao found it interesting and tapped his forehead before deliberately teasing him. "Who said that I will definitely return? Perhaps I will not return." "Will not." Su Ming Lang raised his head and vowed, "Older sister will definitely come back." Shin Miao tilted her head and looked at him. When Su Ming Lang said those words, his eyes were firm and there was no trace of doubt. She asked, "Why are you so sure?" "Older brother Xie said that in less than 2 years, you will definitely come back," Su Ming Lang said excitedly. Brother Xie? Shin Miao's mind turned. Xie Jingxing? Even though father and eldest brother felt that after eldest sister's family left, they did not know when they would return. Father also said that General Shun had angered His Majesty this time, and one feared that His Majesty would not recall General Shun in this lifetime. Su Ming Lang's childish words carried no harm and did not pay attention to whether his words would hurt Shin Miao or not. He only cared about himself and said, but when older brother Xie came to see eldest brother, he told eldest brother that General Shun would definitely return to the capital within 2 years. Xie Jingxing could actually guess her thoughts so accurately? Shin Miao's heart was somewhat frightened. Even though older brother Xie is a bad person and bullied me, bullied my eldest brother and bullied my father. But the words that he said were all true. This was the first time Su Ming Lang spoke so quickly, as if he was trying to prove something as he continued. "He said that you will come back, then you will definitely come back? Older sister Shun, you will come back, right?" As he spoke, his eyes were filled with hope. Shin Miao suddenly thought of Fu Ming and her heart softened as she smiled. "What he said is right. I will come back." "That is great." Su Ming Lang jumped up and said word by word with his short fingers, "Then I will wait here for older sister to come back. When older sister comes back, I will treat older sister to candied haws, small dough figurines, steamed sugar cakes." Shin Miao could not help but laugh again. When she was together with Su Ming Lang, it seemed that some of the hazy emotions would be swept away in an instant. It was as if time had become carefree. She said, "You just listen to your father's words. It is just that. Regarding the matter of me coming back, the words that you said to me today must not be said to other people. If other people were to hear these words, they would parrot the crowd, and when it was passed to Emperor Wen Hui's ears, he might be able to detect some clues. It was fine if there was only one person in this world who knew the thoughts in her heart, but if there were too many people who knew, it would not be good." Su Ming Lang saw Shan Miao's solemn expression and immediately said obediently, "Understood. I only told older sister and will not tell others." He then whispered to Shen Miao, "Older sister Shen, but you cannot tell this to older brother Xie. It was me who eavesdropped. If older brother Xie knew that I eavesdropped, he would beat me up again." In the eyes of the second young master of the Su family, the elegant and noble little marquis of the Xie family was an out-and-out black-hearted bandit. Shin Miao said, "All right, I will not say." Chapter 414. Shin Xian's household started to pack their luggage overnight, and the most amazing thing was that before they left, they forced old Shin Foreign to separate from the family in front of the Shin family. That day when Shin Xian and wife were summoned to the palace, Shen Miao's dispute with old Shin Foreign at the residence's doors eventually fell into Shin Xian's ears, and naturally Shin Xian was unable to restrain his anger. The timing to throw stones at a person when they were down was too good that he did not even bother to maintain his face. Luo Shuiyin was even angrier at herself for being blind and treating this family of hoodlums with sincerity. Even though Shen Xian's military power was taken away, he was still a courageous person. When he was really stubborn, even 9 bulls would not be able to pull him back. The clan head would not be able to rush over, but the clansmen would still be there. Before old General Shen left, he hoped that this family would live in harmony, but at the end it still fell apart. Old Shen Foreign brought out the skills that she had when she was a songstress in the marketplace and occupied more than half of old General Shen's residence and fields. Shen Miao did not stop this at all. After so many years, because it was not managed well, those shops and fields were not as pleasing as before, and it would be a burden to keep them by one side. Moreover, they were about to go to the Shaochun city, and these things were useless. Shen Xian was not lacking in money, as the emperor had bestowed a lot of rewards every year. Old Shen Foreign originally thought that in the public accounts books, the whereabouts of Shen Xian's money had already been cleared clean, but did not know that at the last moment, Shen Miao actually found another account book from who knows where. It clearly stated the money that Shen Xian had handed over to the government all these years, as well as the money that Shen Xian had supplemented himself. In front of the clansmen, these could not be denied, and no matter what, old Shen Foreign had to spit out some. Shen Miao's thoughts were simple. No matter how much she could get back, even if Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyin did not even bother to look at these worldly possessions, it was good to disgust old Shen Foreign. Old Shen Foreign was really disgusted, to the point of falling sick, and Chen Rochio was very angry in her heart. Now that Runwan Yun did not care about the matter, and she was the one managing the household. There was not enough money, and Shen Xian even took back a portion of it. In the future, if things were not going well, one feared that old Shen Foreign would take it out on her. Shen Yu was also angered. These days, she could only watch helplessly as Chen Rochio was overwrought over the matter of money. Shen Yu's high and proud character that was previously raised had also changed. Originally, she did not put money in her eyes, but now she felt that she wanted to fight for it. It was not good to say anything in front of the clansmen, so he looked at Shen Miao and pretended to be worried. One do not know when 5th younger sister will return from this trip. One heard that the Shaochun city is lacking in supplies, and it would be bad if the food is not good in the future. It is better to bring more money over. These words were faintly discernible ridicule of Shen Miao, going to a bitter and cold place. Luo Shuiyin was about to get angry, but she saw Shen Miao lightly smiling. Correct, but the prices in the Ding capital are very high. In the future, without His Majesty's bestowment, second older sister must not spend as extravagantly as before. Her eyes landed on Shen Yu's wrist and smiled. After all, in the future, father will not give you a bracelet. Shen Yu was surprised for a moment and looked at the bracelet on her wrist before her face flushed red. That bracelet was none other than one of the bestowments that Shen Xian received. Originally, Shen Xian's bestowments were confiscated, and Shen Yu would pick some good-looking jewelry from it. Who knew that when she said those words, Shen Miao would directly say that the bracelet that she was wearing was Shen Xian's. Was this not slapping her face in public? But this bracelet was extremely precious, and Shen Yu was not willing to take it off and return it to her. Shen Miao seemed to see her thoughts and smiled gently. Older sister must not return this bracelet. There is no logic in taking back something that is given out. One do not know if there will be such a good bracelet in the future. Chapter 415. At this moment, even Shan Wan, who was standing at the side without saying anything, had an ugly expression on his face. The meaning of Shen Miao's words was that it was impossible for Shan Wan to obtain such a good reward based on his own ability. Shen Wan would never be able to reach Shen Xian's level in his entire life. He pulled down his face and looked coldly at Shen Miao before saying to Chen Rochio and Shen Yu, "Go back." He did not look at Shen Miao again before leaving. Since Shen Xian had already left the capital and his military power had been confiscated, there was no longer a need to put on an act of pretending to be brothers. Shen Wan would never look at those who did not have any value. Shin Gue also cupped his hands towards Shen Xian with some pride and said, "Eldest brother, this younger brother will withdraw first." The figure that brushed his sleeves and left seemed to have some arrogance. When Wan Yinyang saw this, she quickly pulled Shin Dongling and followed up. She had been acting like a little girl for decades and did not change because of the changes in Kai Yun Yuan. Shin Gue was a person who could not keep his cool, and in his career, he relied on flattery to climb up. In terms of talent, he could not compare to his son Shin Yuan, and in terms of temperament, he was not as tenacious as Shen Wan. He was also heartless, and as long as he obtained a bit of sweetness, he would forget the bitterness he had suffered and was nothing to be feared. Shin Xiao was so angry that he said, "What kind of people are they?" Shin Miao gently smiled but did not answer. Not to mention Shen Wan and Shin Roqiu, but for Shan Gui's branch, within 2 years, Shin Yuan Bo would die from smallpox. Shin Gui had already been drugged by Ren Wanyun and would not be able to have any more children in this lifetime. So what if he had money, power, and beauties? He didn't even have anyone to inherit his family business. There were 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants was the worst. At that time, old Shun Foreign would only urge her 2 sons to quickly spread the branches and leaves. Did Shin Roqiu think that she would be able to sit back and relax? Evil people will be tortured by evil people. Leave this mess to the Shin family and let them clean it up themselves. When the matter of Shan Xin retreating to the Shaochun city reached Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi's ears, Emperor Wan Hui had already approved it. At this time, Fu Xiuyi naturally could not say anything else. The more he said, the more suspicious it would be. It was just that Shen Xion's sudden appearance made him feel strange. He could see clearly that after so many years, even though Shen Xion was a martial artist on the surface, he was not an impulsive person. Even if he was indignant that his tiger tally had been taken away, he would not have hurriedly submitted a memorial and left the capital the next day. Involuntarily, Fu Xiuyi remembered what Shin Yuan had reminded him before. "Your Highness, don't underestimate my 5th sister." But at that time, Fu Xiuyi did not take this sentence to heart. But now, for some reason, it resurfaced in his mind again. For Shin Xion to suddenly make this decision, could it be that Shin Miao was adding fuel to the fire? But how would a pampered young lady of the Ding capital take the initiative to go to such a cold place like the northwestern region? Fu Xiuyi sensed that something was wrong, but he could not tell what was wrong. He only felt that things should not develop like this. The advisor beside him asked, "Your Highness, are you worried about the formidable general?" Even though there was a change in the situation, but the Shen family's army had already dispersed and the tiger tally was taken back, so the formidable great general's role was not much. "Your Highness can rest assured and show off your skills." Fu Xiuyi recollected his thoughts and lightly responded. Even though Shin Xion had deviated from his plans, he was after all not an important chess piece. If it was an important chess piece, in the beginning when Shen Miao was in love with him, he could be used. But one did not know what happened afterwards, and that little bit of love dissipated, making him lose the opportunity to pull the Shen family onto his boat. But it was considered as a sigh of relief. If he really married Shin Miao, even if he had the Shen family's military strength, he would still be ridiculed by everyone. Fu Xiuyi was extremely proud in his bones, so how would he allow himself to have such a stain? Now those hypotheses were scattered along with Shan Xion's family leaving the capital. He said, "Go and recruit more people these days." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.